especially at the age of AI. Everything is becoming so transactional and technical. S- And yet, people don't seem to feel seen, heard, and valued, aka loved. So, this meaningful conversation, when you feel seen, when you feel heard, they're becoming more and more important. And I think that's going to be the future from now on, especially with AI spreading and affecting us. So what I did, I created a free, like a non-judgmental space for people to sit with me for half an hour, 25 minutes, just to think. And it's not meditation, it's not coaching, it's not therapy. It's something, in between when people we're together with like in a collective energy and just holding space for them. And they can pick a few thoughts out of the 60, 70, 80,000 thoughts we are having on our mind each and every single day. And they have to sit with it. They have to think it through, basically, without any interruption, no phones pinging, nothing, nobody's, no screaming kids around, just you and your thoughts.
Anxiety. All right, welcome everybody back to the Full Battery Media Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Trace, and I have an awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Thank you, Sean, for inviting me on your show. My name is Noemi Beres, and I live on the beautiful Mediterranean island of Cyprus in Europe. I run a podcast booking agency called Podcast Connections, and we help entrepreneurs, business owners to get booked on quality podcast shows and help to share their knowledge and grow their business with podcast shows. And that's what I've been doing in the past 6 years, but I've been an online entrepreneur since 2007 and doing many things, including content creation, social media marketing, online marketing. And I'm also an artist, a mixed media collage artist. So
that's very
that's
cool.
about me in a nutshell.
That is a very nice little nutshell. You do some interesting and fun things. How did you start getting into the whole podcast area? What was it that pulled you down that rabbit hole?
The pandemic, like every other, in people's life, it was a pandemic. The first business we had with my husband, it was a travel-related, an online travel company. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, that stopped back in 2020. So we had to pivot. And that's how I ended up working in the podcasting world. It was completely and utterly accidental. But I really enjoyed the journey in the past 6 years.
I love that. What was your favorite part of the journey so far?
Connecting with people and connecting people with each other. And I think that's amazing. I mean, thanks to technology, Zoom, all kind of tech spaces, we can now connect with people from anywhere in the world since 2020 and before that too. And for me, it was so eye-opening that I can have all these conversations with these amazing and fantastic people, and I can learn so much from them, especially if I'm a guest on a podcast or, if I'm just having a chat with them.
I love that. One of the wild things too that I realized, I have this huge network that I've been building now with my podcast, like absolutely huge. And I think it's like a superpower to be able to have this type of network that you're able to reach out to, whether it be going on the podcast or having people onto your podcast. But do you know how rarely I have guests actually? There have been 3 or 4 people out of hundreds. My smallest podcast, I have 50 episodes. My larger, I have got at least 400 episodes between different podcasts. And I've had 2 or 3 people ask, can you introduce me to someone? Can you introduce me to, your network? And I just am blown away by how few it is. And it's interesting that as I've asked the lady who was like asking me, I said, I wonder why more people don't ask. And she says, I didn't think you would be willing to introduce me to your network. And I was like, why not? It's a beautiful thing to be able to help other people connect. To me, I think the ability to connect people is a superpower that if you're able to help people connect, people will never forget that. They will never forget the way that you were able to bring them together with someone who might have helped them. I remember helped a friend to get a job, and they were blown away that I was willing to help them get a job. And all I had to do was like say, "Hey, this is Tom, this is Bob. Guys
That's it.
connect." That's it. And they were like, "Wow, thank you so much." And I was like, "I literally just introduced you. You were two people that I was like, I met this person and I met this person. I was like, you know what? They'd be kind of great if I connected them." And
Mm,
it was. But it's like you have to sit there and talk to enough people to even realize what connections are good, you know?
yeah, very true.
I
It's
want to
it's a it's yeah, it's a fun practice to do for sure.
Right? Well, I want to ask you this. Why do so many smart people struggle to get attention online, even when they have valuable things to say?
That's a brilliant question, Sean. And I think it's about that knowledge is not enough. Like you can be
Yeah.
so smart and but that's not enough. The most important thing is that people connect with people, and people doesn't just connect with your knowledge, they connect with you. They want to feel your energy, they want to get to know you, the person behind whatever you do. And the problem is nowadays it's so hard for so many people to open up, like really open up about themselves,
Yeah.
because they afraid of being like scrutinized or judged by other people. And probably that's one of the biggest problem when people can do that.
I think that that was something that scared me, that I was gonna say something online or say something in a
Mm.
film or in a movie that was gonna come back and kick me and bite me in the butt someday. And then I was just like, at some point in time, I was just like, you know, you have to move beyond that. You have to sit there and go, it is where I'm at. This is who I am. And this is what I believe. This is what is interesting to me. And I don't have all the answers. And that's one of the things that I say on my podcast. All of them is like, I am here like gathering stories.
Yeah,
Um, but I don't have all the answers, you know, and I think that it's good to remember that it's good to ask questions, you know, and what do you think is what makes a podcast guest interesting instead of boring?
the I think the best podcast guest, again, it always go back to being open and being vulnerable on the shows.
Yeah,
Like not putting
right.
this mask on, and you don't have all those polished talking points, but you really share your story. I mean, the who you are, where did you come from, and how this story can teach other people. So you're not your hero of your own story, but the guide who can help other people to help just figure out themselves as well, not just listening to someone's horrible story, how awful their life was, but how you can teach them what they can learn from this story. I think that's the most important thing. And that helps become guests, more appealing, and people can align with those stories.
Right? They can. And that's the thing that
Yeah,
I think that people don't realize is like you're trying to help people feel less alone. You're
yeah,
trying to help people feel like they can connect a little bit more and feel a little less overwhelmed, you know, because man, everyone that you meet is fighting a hard fight.
yeah,
And I think if you can help them feel like, hey, this is where I'm at. Um, it's not always easy, but this is where I'm at. And
yeah.
I think that that's a powerful thing. I wanted to ask you this question too, because, you've got such a wealth of experience. A lot of people think that podcasting is just talking into a microphone. What are they missing?
I think they're missing the part that podcasting is actually a wonderful conversation, like a really friendly conversation between two people.
Yeah.
And you have to treat it as it is, like, as if it's happening over a cup of coffee or tea. So you just
Have
need
my tea
need
here.
to exactly. And I have my water. So
Yeah.
and when people genuinely feel that kind of energy between the two people, they will tune in But if they don't feel
Yeah.
that, if it's just like a back and forth ping pong questions between two people, they will tune out. That's it. I mean, the attention span is so short right now. We always talk about that. So if you don't bring that value to the show, they're not interested anymore.
Yeah. That's so true. They just get bored and they tune
Yeah.
out. But like, I want to ask you this because I've been trying to figure it out. But why do some podcast interviews create real human connections while others feel just like fake or transactional? Like someone's, I've had that on before where I felt like the person was just waiting to get off the conversation. And then I didn't know what to do with it. I was just like, all right, well, that's it. Have a good day. But like, why do some feel so real and others feel just forced?
That's also a brilliant question, Sean. And I think that the problem is that sometimes, and many times, the podcast guests, they don't listen to the conversation, and they don't have that kind
Mm,
of vibe or energy with the host. They don't listen, they don't care, they just want to get on the next show and the next show, and they
yeah,
don't even pay attention to you as a person. So, and they never really like connected with you in any shape or form. And when there's no connection, again, people, the audience, the listeners will feel that immediately. And you feel
yeah,
it too, because it's just something cringy about that when you
right.
sit there and you just can't connect. You can feel that you can't break through that kind of barrier between between the guest and the host.
Yeah, right. I think too, like you can feel it when someone's just waiting to go. And I mean,
Yeah.
and that's just, I don't think people realize how much that hurts their brand. Like it hurts your brand as a guest, like that looks like you're just trying to jump out the front door.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you this, but I just think that people don't understand certain things. Like one of the things I don't think people understand is how to be visible online. And if someone who had no idea about content and being online asked you this question, what would you say? How do people become known online? What would you tell them?
There are different ways nowadays. I mean, obviously there's social media, love or hate relationship with most of the people, but it's free, it's there, and you can totally build your brand on social media if you do it right. And again, like podcast guesting is another form. It's relationship marketing, but also getting your name, getting your brand out there. It's really important. And if you do it wisely and if you are consistent with it, and it's just not about the quality of the content, that's important too, but being consistent with it. Because if you just post once or twice on LinkedIn, that won't help your business. And everybody wants this, I want to be famous next day or in 2 weeks' time. And it's not going to happen. I'm following a very big LinkedIn expert from Australia, and he has these tips every single morning, and I read them. And he talked about this. It's about obviously the content, but it's about consistently, like show up every single day, and people
Yeah.
will get to know your name, your face, your story. And I think that's how you found me online as well, because when you show up others people feed and they find you interesting, and you always there, like somehow you always appear there, they will notice you.
100%. Like you just have to show up. I told someone the other day, someone who's going to be working with my company, the fact that I am not a financial expert, but I have a financial podcast called the Growing Money with Sean Trey's podcast. And
Yeah.
one of the funny things is that I had someone reach out to me and say, "Hey, we are trying to find the thought leaders in the personal finance space, the content thought leaders in the personal finance space, and you are one of those." And I was like, say what? I am a thought leader in the personal finance space? Like, that's personally terrifying to me, but pretty awesome that me simply showing up again and again and again has created a space where people are saying, hey, Sean is one of the thought leaders out there. And I
Yeah.
never thought that that was who I was. But according to other people, that's the way it is. And that was just consistency of me showing up day after day after day, you
Yeah.
know? I wanted to ask you this. What's the biggest mistake people make when they try to grow their personal brand?
What you just said before, like
Yeah.
when they do they make mistakes like that on podcast interviews. And the other big mistake can be, for example, if we're talking about the podcasting world, that you're getting
Yes.
on not the right podcasts. You have to
Um,
be careful with it, and you need to pick quality over quantity, because you can get on any kind of shows nowadays, like, I don't know, like 4 million podcasts out there, like loads of them, but you don't necessarily have to be on every single one. I mean, you really have to find those ones that help you to grow and helps your brand. And it's not about download numbers, it's not about ROI, it's about basically aligning and finding the podcast that aligns with your niche and align with your business. I mean, you need to cover those podcasts that are connected to your business and to your personality. Because if you end up on shows that you don't like, and they might hurt your business.
right? They might, and you have to be very much aware of like who these people are and do your research on them, you know? It's about when you connect with someone or align with someone, is that an alignment that's right? You know, and it's also about the conversations. Like, are the people going to ask the right questions that make your knowledge pop out, that bring out the best in you? You talk a lot about meaningful conversations. Why do you think people are craving deeper conversations right now?
Especially at the age of AI, everything is becoming so transactional and technical. And yet people don't seem to feel seen, heard, and valued, aka loved. So
Uh,
this meaningful conversation, when you feel seen, when you feel heard, they're becoming more and more important. And I think that's going to be the future from now on, especially with AI spreading and affecting us.
yeah. I think people want that truth, that like, I've been working with my clients on actually getting out and walk and talk.
Yeah.
Like, take your camera with you, get outside. Like, go film in a place that you're going to the gym, take your camera with you. And I'm
Yeah.
not talking like these are my reps, but like just like, hey guys, I came to the gym today and this is what I'm dealing with right now. This is where I am in my life. And what my clients have been noticing is that people engage with it more because like I can relate to that. I can't
Yeah.
relate to the guy sitting there telling me this is what you need to do to crush it every day. I don't always feel like I'm crushing it every day, but there are ways that, you can talk to people that have that bring people back to the fold, you know? And I wanted to ask you this because how do you know if someone is actually listening during a conversation and just instead of just waiting to talk when you're on a podcast?
Yeah, and it happened to me actually, Sean, like a few times
Really?
when they don't care.
Mm.
Like
Right.
they ask a question, next question, and they never follow up with a question. I think that's the
Mm,
biggest tell sign that, like, okay, like they never follow up. They just go on, and the next question is not even connected to the reply I gave to them. And I think that that means that they're not actively listening what I'm saying, and it's I think it's a form of disrespect too, because that's
right.
okay that you want to follow your own flow of conversations, but then
Yeah.
I think the personal touch and the human connection just kind of dissolves and disappears in that space.
I was watching this very interesting video about a hostage negotiator, and they were talking about active listening and how, like, there are certain things that you have to do to be good at active listening.
Mm,
And it was like one of the ones that was interesting is like, I think it's repeating back the last three words or something.
yeah,
But, if you're not engaging and listening, um, it sounds kind of funny. Like, I've had that happen before where the mic cut out, not the mic, but like the video got
right.
glitchy. And, while the video was glitchy and I was just like, "Uh-huh, uh-huh," and I'm just sitting there nodding, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I hope the video comes back." And then the video comes back and the person's smiling at me and I'm supposed to respond, and I was just like, "Okay," and I said something. And then when I was editing that video and the thing I said was so not connected, I was like, "Oh gosh. Oh gosh, it was so wrong." But when I was in that situation, I could see it. And that's the thing that I think that we don't realize is like podcasters is like the audience can see it. The audience can
Mm.
hear if you're not in a real conversation. The audience can see if you're just like, okay, Bob, on to the next question. And you're like, oh, wow, that's kind of wild like
Yeah.
that. I mean, and it's like are you leading the person to your agenda? Are you leading them to a place you want to be, or are you respecting the general flow of the conversation? Because
Mm,
at the end of the day, I think that truly great conversations respect the flow.
yeah, absolutely.
What are your favorite conversations to listen to on podcasts?
The free flow ones, definitely. When we don't have
Mhm.
like next question, next question, and let's ask 50 questions during a podcast interview. I had that. I had that experience before. So, and I think, that's kind of the energy is there. People are smiling, they're not holding back. You can just feel part of the conversation so easily, and you can be like the audience is sitting with us in that studio, and
Mhm.
everybody's listening, and I think it's magical when you have that kind of feeling with the podcast host. Like, I never met you before. We only connected through
Right,
LinkedIn. You invited me on
right.
your show, but because I follow your posts on LinkedIn and I listened to one of your podcast episodes before, it felt like I already knew you because
That's
I
awesome.
made some effort to do some research and what you've been doing, how you do your podcast interviews, and I think people can feel that during a
Yeah.
conversation.
I love that, and I hope that people there was a great thing someone said to me the other day. They needed to reschedule the podcast,
Mm.
and, when they were like, "Oh, I've got my kid's sick. I need to reschedule." And I was like, "Of course, like, for sure."
Yeah.
Like, that's just normal. And one of the things that happened, um, was they said to me, she's like, "I knew you would." And I was like, "I've never met this person." And I was like, "Can you tell me a little bit more? How did you know I would?" And she says, "From all that you talk about with your daughter and your
Mm.
family and everything you say in your podcast, I know how you see the world. I
Yeah.
know how you're going to interact. And I knew that you would be okay with me rescheduling." And that made me feel good inside
Yeah.
that I'm getting through with what I'm supposed to be getting through, what I'm trying to get through, and not just getting on here and going, "So, Tommy, tell me about point number one that I need you to talk about." It's not, it's less transactional and more authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember the post about your daughter too. And yeah, absolutely. And that definitely come through. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I wanted to ask you because there was something that I saw that you created called silent thinking sessions.
Yeah.
What is that? And can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was on a hiking trip in North Carolina last year in the US. And for me, it was very eye-opening. It was an eye-opening experience because when I work and when just doing your thing, doing your podcast, guesting, helping your clients, you don't have time to think because we never schedule time to think. And that week, like completely offline, made me think that, okay, I need time to think, but I never schedule it. I'm on a roll, I'm on the next call, I'm on next meeting. So what I did, I figured, okay, this is a space that may probably some people need it and need help with it. So what I did, I created a free, like a non-judgmental space for people to sit with me for half an hour, 25 minutes, just to think. And
Mhm.
it's not meditation, it's not coaching, it's not therapy. It's something, in between when people we're together with like in a collective energy and just holding space for them, and they can pick a few thoughts out of the 60, 70, 80,000 thoughts we are having on our mind each and every single day, and they have to sit with it. They have to think it through, basically, without any interruption. No phones pinging, nothing, nobody's, no screaming kids around, just you and your
Right.
thoughts.
Right? That is so important. The silence and the peace. I had the other day was so overwhelmed and I just had a lot. My cup was full
Yeah.
and I just was like, I'm kind of done right now. So I grabbed my guitar, I pulled it out, and I was like, I just played a little bit. And even though there was noise, there was more silence. There was more silence than there was noise. And I just sat there and I played and I listened and I was just like, Okay, there we go. That's what I needed right now. I just needed that time to breathe. And that breathing brought me back to a place that I could find answers. And the
Mm.
answers were just important to find. And I couldn't find them in any place besides that stillness. And yeah, it's an important thing to remember. How do you think, or why do you think so many adults are scared of silence or slowing down?
Because it's uncomfortable. It's scary. It's like you're sitting with your own thoughts, and sometimes those thoughts are can be disturbing, and you just don't want to pay attention to them, and maybe just swipe them under the carpet because it's easier. It's so much easier than to deal with them. But as you said,
Yeah,
sometimes our cup can be full and overflow, and sometimes we just need to sit with those thoughts, even if they are uncomfortable. And it's scary.
right. It is. I heard once about the what was it? The sensory deprivation chamber that
Mhm.
was like it's like a giant swim tank that you get in and it's foam lined and you get inside and it's just really quiet. And they say that a lot of people have a hard time in there because of the quietness. Because it is so quiet that people just are like, bit overwhelmed right now. And I'm just sitting there going, dude, I'd love to have that level of peace and quiet in my day and life. But it's interesting because some people love the noise. Some people love don't. And they just want it to be
Mm,
peaceful. They want it to shut down. They want it to be quiet?
yeah.
So how do you think people can go about cultivating more peace, more quiet, and more silence in their daily lives?
I mean, that's an easy question for me because I am a avid walker. It's like I love walking and I
Mm,
love being in nature. And I think nature can really bring you that kind of peace and quiet that we require.
yeah.
And by nature, we were supposed to be in nature more and more. And I read a study about this that kids today spend about an average like I don't know student kid in America spend about 8 minutes in nature. I mean, on an average day, and that's not a lot. So I
Mhm.
think it's when we if we can go back to our roots a little bit and spend more time outside and just if you just go for like 10, 15 minutes, it can really help you to reset your system, reboot your system. That's why I started a a vlog, basically, Walk with Noemi. And I record
That's
these
awesome.
YouTube shorts every single day for people who are struggling with anything in life, mental health problem, emotional health, and I just give them a few tips and tricks like how to deal with that. And I'm always outside in nature and shooting these videos and uploading them on YouTube. And it's not about money or anything like that, but that's how I cope with with my problem. And I think if I can help just one single person with a walking blog, I'm happy. That was my goal.
Right? I think that's the thing too that I think that people are the power of content is that you can connect people. You
Yeah.
can bring people together and you can help people make their lives a little bit better. And I think that um that's one of the things that I have felt most happy about is to be able to see that we can empower other people. And that's one of the core things that I try to do through my podcast. How can I empower people to try new things, to reach out, to see new experiences, and to realize this world is not such a big, scary place if we can connect with each other, we can help each other,
Yeah.
if we can build something together. But it starts with conversations. It starts with being willing to have conversations with the people around us? And so how if someone wants to either be on a podcast or start their own podcast, where do you think they should start?
They should start listening to podcasts. I mean, I think that's
Right.
really important and figuring out what kind of podcast they want to be a guest on. what's
Mhm.
their niche, what's the vibe they want to follow, and I think it's really important to get to know this, and the podcast host too, and not just following the podcast, but actually reaching out to the host, maybe on social media, on LinkedIn, and learning about them, learning about their business too. I think that's a very cool, space to be, because that's the first thing. I mean, you need to know where you want to be a guest on.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. And I think that for me, I have a wish list of podcasts that I'd like to get onto. And, it's a wish list, and I'm not there yet, but someday I hopefully will be able to like, hi, Stephen Bartlett. Hi, Mel Robbins.
Oh
Way.
no, you said Stephen Bartlett at the beginning. My favorite, my all-time
Yeah,
favorite. Yeah.
I love him. I love the way he
Yeah.
approaches things. And I
Yeah.
just think that like, it's a dream. And, maybe I'm not there yet, but someday, one step at a time, Oh, you've been helping people get booked on podcast for a while now.
Yeah.
What do you think people really remember most? The advice, the information, or how someone made them feel?
It's definitely how someone made them feel. It's like, I think we have that very famous quote by Maya Angelou, that how people remember how you made them feel. And I think that's again the same about podcast interviews. It's all about that. When you feel your energy and what you bring to the table, it makes a huge difference in the conversation.
Yeah. I hope that I can make people feel hopeful. I think that one of the things that we need more of are stories of hope. It's about helping people feel optimistic
Yeah.
and seen and heard. And I'm going to tell you the truth, it's not always easy to do. It's hard on days where I'm having a tough day to show up. And, one of the things that I think is so important is to keep figuring out how to show up, you know? And for you, how would you tell someone to figure out how to keep going even when they might be having a hard time? Like you don't feel like going on this podcast today, but how do you still go on upon like and have a good conversation,
I think it's all about, maybe it sounds cliche, but it's all about your mindset. The way you
Yeah.
decide, okay, this is how my day will go today, and you just make up your mind. Maybe in the morning, and I want to feel awesome. I want to do this. I want to do that, and also think about like all the horrible things that we are imagining. It's only in our head, and so sometimes we
Mhm.
just need to get out of our head. And I have a quote actually on my desk, and I'm going to read that. So, because I always
Please
remember
do.
that, like, every day is a new life to a wise person. So
Oh,
try to approach every day, like every podcast interview you want to be a guest on, and you don't feel like that I want to do it today. Like, try to imagine it like this is a new life to me, as to a wise
uh,
person. I think it's all about that, and most of the bad things that we think, it's just in our head, and we have to just get out of our head and just keep going. And that's my motto in life, like, just keep going no matter what, and take the small steps approach, and don't rush. Be patient with yourself, and you will get there even on bad days.
right. Especially on bad days. I think those days are
Yeah.
days that can teach us.
Mm.
They're days where if you are able to show up, you know, you'll realize that the sun still rises and, you have a lot to learn. There is much to be learned on days where the best thing that you can do is to keep showing up.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the things that I'm learning is how to keep showing up as a host, when I am uncertain, when I am unsure about how to connect with someone, when I'm unsure about the best way to do so,
Mm.
where I find my anchor is simply going, who is this person that's sitting here in front of me? Who is this person that is talking to me and sharing their story? Because if I can find a way to hear their story and figure out where they're coming from, and I can show the humanity in that person, isn't that a good place to start? Isn't that a great place to start most conversations? Is to see the person behind the words, and so often we're not doing that,
Mm. And that also makes you human. And that's why you are a great podcast host. That's it.
I'm trying my best. I think it's about showing up every day
Yeah.
and hoping that I can get it right, Where can people go to find out more about you and what you do?
You can visit our website, which is podcastconnections, plural.co. You can get in touch with us through our website. And of course, I am really active on LinkedIn. So if you might type my name in, Noemi Beres, you can find me there. And I'm always happy to connect and have a chat.